everyone, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beer and Real Estate. I'm Ryan Wall.
And I'm Brian Colquitt.
And this is a show where two guys talk about two of their favorite things, beer and real estate. Each week we're going to feature a local brewery on our show. This week we'd like to thank our sponsor, Brown Truck Brewery.
And on this week's episode of Beer and Real Estate, we're going to focus on marketing. We actually got a special guest joining us all the way from Texas. Her name is Kristin Gyldenege. She has been on the national and local news throughout the real estate industry over the last month because of some of the tactics that she used for one of her listings in Texas. So Kristin, if you would, introduce yourself and we'll get started with some of the questions that we'll want to kind of ask you and kind of learn some ins and outs as far as how you go about marketing your listings.
Everybody knows me as Kristin.
Okay.
I am from Houston, Texas, 5 generations. I live in Magnolia, Texas, currently. And I'm mainly focused in real estate on the outskirts of town, but I go all over. So 5 generations, there's not much of the city I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see, I got in real estate. I had wanted to be a realtor about 20 years ago and just kept putting it off because I did not want to be what the persona of a real estate agent was. Kind of stuffy, uptight. Yeah, I couldn't see myself being that. So I just put it off and put it off and put it off. And finally, after 17 years in the bar business, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And frankly, I'm going to be me. And I don't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks about it. They love it or hate it, take it or leave it. So that's what I did. And I hit the floor running. And when I signed up with my broker, I had 2 listings already before I even signed up with my first broker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's been my first year, like technical year. I did 25 transactions. So, which was a lot for somebody that's never been in the business before and had no idea what the hell I was doing. And, I kind of learned it on my own because I was at a 100% brokerage. And there wasn't a whole lot of support or training or mentoring or anything for that matter. So it was just kind of do what you have to do. I had a marketing background. I was always in marketing. Not to mention I handled all the marketing for my bars and just kind of was my thing. I knew how to market. And I started out being the potty mouth agent. I was a potty mouth realtor, and then NAR wasn't really happy about that. So,
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was across the back of my car that I was the potty mouth realtor,
oh, wow.
And I will sell the shit out of your house. And,
I love it.
That went viral. Somebody took a picture of it and it went viral. And then I got a cease and desist from NAR and I got drug into my broker's office. This is like the first 2 weeks of being in business.
That's so awesome.
And I was quickly had become known as the redheaded stepchild, like, oh God, what has she gone and done now? Kind of thing. So my broker basically was like, we can't have that. We don't want a part of that. That's not the image that we want, and I'm like, what difference does it make? It's me it's representing. It's not, granted it's you, but I'm the one out there putting myself out there. It's my business I'm building. So it's my brand I'm trying to build.
Exactly.
So I really haven't quite equated that. With smaller brokerages, I can understand with like Remax and Keller Williams, like you belong to part of a brand. But with these small brokerages, it's like you're building yourself. So I never could understand like why you couldn't brand yourself as what you are and what you want to represent. So there you go.
Well, exactly.
I would say, Kristin, you'd have to be living under a rock to not have heard your name or have heard what you've done in this particular listing on marketing. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
When did you first think about this idea and what led you there?
And first tell about, for those that are watching that may have not seen this, that's true. Tell them a little bit about that as well as you get into that.
This was, so I also do photography and I can't stand real estate photos. Like they're all the same. I refuse to use fisheye wide angle lenses because it's a waste of time. I mean, it makes everything look amazingly large, and it never fails. You walk in with your client and they're like, well, this is not what it looked like online.
Right.
I mean, one of the things I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, searching for houses is like online dating. Nothing is ever as it is in person as it is online. And they understand that.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. So once they understand that, they're like, oh God, I totally understand what you mean, right? By saying that. And that's what it is. It's all, to make it look a certain way to get them there. And then they're like, this is not what I thought I was getting.
Yeah.
Catfish. By the same token, somebody takes really crappy pictures and the house maybe isn't that bad. I mean, give her a second date. You never know, right? So you got to at least meet her for coffee. I mean, maybe she represents better, in person. It's just that kind of thing. So, and everybody's said it before, we're matchmakers. So we know best as far as like what's a really good house for these people. And people have an idea in their head of what they want, and it's not always what they need.
Exactly.
So I had this listing, and it's a great house, but it's in an area that typically floods. So most people don't even, like everybody in Houston knows that. And they just, east side of 45, they're like, no. So it doesn't get a whole lot of views. It's a brand new house in the area. It's bigger than most of the houses in the area, and it's a double lot. So it was immediately looks overpriced, which was another hurdle. Then it was bright blue, which is another hurdle. And this single mom going through a divorce, and she was just like, Christy, we have got to get this sold. It was part of her divorce. It was a nasty divorce. So I'm like, all right, I'll do whatever I can. And we just weren't getting any views. I mean, I think all of October I had like 180 views. And I had kind of this concept in my mind that I wanted to do that I knew it was going to go viral. I didn't think it was quite going to go as big as it went, but I knew it was going to go viral. So I kind of put some feelers out for a couple of friends of mine that own gyms locally. And I'm like, hey, if anybody wants to break into being a fitness model or kind of wants to get out there and is willing to do this for me, this is what I want to do. And so one of my friends, she found me a couple of people that were regulars at her gym, and she was like, they were down to do it, and they showed up. I had talked to the homeowner about it, and she loved the idea. From day one, she was like, I trust you 100%. Whatever you want to do with it, go.
That's good.
And so they showed up. I told her the concept, what we were doing. She's like, I can't wait to see it. And it blew up. So it was interesting. It's one of like probably about 30 different ideas that I have for listing photos. So.
Yeah. What? Awesome. And that kind of leads into No, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just don't, I'm having a really hard time. I knew I was going to get backlash. I get backlash for everything I do from older agents. But to me, to get the backlash and the lack of support and just downright nastiness from the older agents was what really confused me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's kind of leading into today's world where obviously real estate, we're changing. The market's changing, how we market listings and things like that. So I think what you're doing is thinking outside the box. What are some new ways to get exposure that we haven't gotten in the past? So I think it's awesome. I mean,
and change is scary, especially for the old heads. It's something they hadn't seen before. It's something that is, I mean, obviously, taboo in their minds as far as that goes. So, I mean, I'm sure you got a ton of backlash from there.
Yeah. So you mentioned as far as you've been thinking about that. What is this something that you've been wanting to do, or you just kind of you just said, you know what, let's try it. It's perfect time to try it. Let's see what my seller thinks and just go with it.
It's something I had wanted to do, but I knew it was going to had to be the right combination of the right house to market towards a younger couple or just a younger element anyway. And it had to be the right owner. It couldn't, I have a couple of listings where the family still lives in the house. That just wouldn't work.
Yeah. Right.
You don't want to taint a family's image of their house with, fitness models everywhere. So it just had to be the right combination. And the homeowner is like, she's shaved head and covered in tattoos, and she was really progressive and all about it. And, the house definitely caters and kind of is geared more towards the younger set. So that's what I wanted. I wanted something, I see all these listing photos, these crazy ones that go viral all the time. And typically what goes viral is like the really disgusting houses or the weird and creepy houses. I wanted something that people were like, oh my God, like that's awesome. And I could totally see, like, I want to live in that house because I want that chick or I want that guy to live there with me or to be able to see themselves in that house, Yeah. So it was something that was always in the back of my mind, but the right combination had to fall into place.
So here's the question. Did you get pulled back into your broker's office?
Well, I switched brokers, and okay. Yes, thank God I switched brokers because they would have had a heart attack. But I switched brokers, and I had been recruited by my current broker because of kind of my edgy way of doing things.
So they were looking for the
and so she concept. Supported me 100%, and like from the get-go. Yeah, from the get-go, she's like, do whatever you have to do and run with it. And she kind of recruited me to build the Houston market because they're really big in El Paso. And so I was like, great, that's what I wanted to do because I have noticed that there is a severe lack of training and mentoring that goes on with new agents, and from my own experience. And I get so frustrated with dealing with other agents, even older agents, and they're like, oh, they have no clue what the hell's going on. And I'm like, they had no training at all, like none. I mean, they take these classes, but there's no training. Right. So that's really what I wanted to do, is kind of open up a brokerage where there was training and training them to think outside the box and be progressive and, service their client. Stop reading from a freaking textbook and, just do what's in the best interest of your client. And if it gets you in trouble, it gets you in trouble, but it was in the best interest of your client and it gets the house sold.
Right. And going back a little bit, because we've mentioned, again, for viewers that have not seen this, we keep mentioning going viral. How viral did you go?
Well, the house on our MLS, our local MLS, it had 50,000 views in 2 days.
Wow.
So I don't know what the latest count was. And then, so it got picked up by, I've done so many different news organizations. And, a day later, I got our local news station called me and they're like, we're on our way to the house. Can you meet us out there and do an interview? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then it got picked up by Inside Edition, and we did an interview with Inside Edition. And then it got picked up by, every small online news, whatever, did their own version of it. And then it went overseas and got picked up by a couple of UK news stations. And it really went fast. And my broker kind of freaked out a little bit because she was, I sent, when I first did it, I sent her the link and I was like, hey, I revised my listing. What do you think? Well, she didn't click through all the pictures. She just looked at the first one and she was like, okay, whatever, like, and didn't go any further with it. Oh. So, and then we had Thanksgiving holidays, and that was all that week. So by Monday, she had gotten so much hate mail.
Oh, yeah.
And it was horrible. And she goes, Kristin, what do we do about this? What do we do? We need to issue an apology, or we need to, something. I'm like, just it'll go away. Like it's the internet. I mean, it'll blow up and it'll die as fast as it blew up.
Yeah. So
just cool your jets for a little while, and then in 6 months somebody else will pick it up and it'll go a little bit further, but you're fine. This is not politics. We don't need to issue an apology for offending people. Like, I'm not going to do it. And so she's like, okay, well, can we take it down? I'm like, you can't take it down. Like,
it's up now. It's out there.
It's out there. Once, you take it and run with it. So
awesome.
So, beyond this a little bit more too is, talk about the local MLS getting 50,000 views in 2 days. What about showings? I mean, things like that. Have you done did you have to do any marketing yourself through like online marketing, or you're just putting it up there and it's, hey, the world's going to see it now?
With this second time, when I revised the pictures and everything, I had to kind of seed it, I would post it up, and then I tagged just the right people that I knew had a crap ton of friends and people that were into real estate, and that they would pick it up and look at it. So you definitely have to seed it. You can't just put it out there and expect it to get picked up, because it's never going to happen. So I seeded it. We took the pictures Sunday. I had them edited and up by Sunday night by about 8:00, and posted it, and it was viral by midnight. So, and then HAR had, like, our local MLS, they had over 100 phone calls and complaints about it. So they had to take it down. They took them down by like 10:00 the next morning, but it was already gone by then. And it was on Zillow for like another 2 or 3 days. And it was on realtor.com for another 2 or 3 days. And then all the syndicated real estate sites still had the old, pickup on there. So, yeah.
So what's your opinion on that? You did all this marketing, it's working. Your job as an agent is to market your house to the best of your ability for your clients.
Right.
Here you do just that. You get national exposure, even across seas, people's picking up on the story. But then you get kind of pulled back a little bit and say, hey, that's a little too far. What was your view on that? How did that make you feel?
So the restrictive nature of our business, and the fact that we are held to this code, I get it, and I get the code, and I get the ethical guidelines. But at the same time, I feel it's antiquated. I feel like, my client was okay with it. My client loved it. She posted my name and the link to the house and the pictures all over her website, like her Facebook page, her Instagram, everything. She loved it. It's one of those things that our hands are tied by this code, this antiquated code that will not allow us to do what is in the best interest of our client at all times. I've seen some real estate videos out there that are way more risque than what I put up, but what I put up was on the MLS, which is a little bit different. And it basically was kind of, I guess, a slap in the face is what they considered it, because it was their MLS.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, you got a lot of exposure with, you said Inside Edition and the local news and national coverage. And I'm sure you never expected Beer and Real Estate to reach out to you, but I'm glad you took our interview as well. But for other agents watching, new agents, that who may be struggling, to come up with ideas to market a listing, what are some tips you can give them?
I walk that line constantly, and I would say just don't be afraid to try something new at all. Yep. Beg for forgiveness later, and it's easier than asking for permission now. I stay in trouble, so I'm used to it. It's just kind of one of those things. I'm an unpredictable person. I would say be unpredictable. I can't tell you how many messages I received from LinkedIn and Instagram and people all over the United States that were like, man, I wish my realtor was like you. I'm so tired of my boring realtor. To the point where I was even sending out referrals to other realtors that I knew would be edgy and take a chance and, you know, maybe think outside the box and not just take the same fucking fisheye view photos of a boring house and throw them up on the MLS in hopes that the right person's going to see it.
That's the best way to sell it, right? That's how we're supposed to do it. Just throw a picture up.
Yeah.
Sign the yard.
Apparently. Yeah, exactly. If you want to be like one in a billion, it's just.
Well, I like.
I don't know. I would definitely say we need some fresh ideas. We need fresh blood out there. You know, we are. The older generation of realtors is constantly. They're the biggest criers when it comes to the new technology, and the younger generation that has basically found a way to replace us. And they're constantly, we're going to be outdated and we're going to be just like travel agents and this and that. Well, if you don't bring anything to the table, yes, you are going to be replaced. Yeah. And they will find a way and have found ways to do business without us.
I agree.
Do they get screwed? Absolutely. And they figure that out after their first transaction, but they're going to be in those houses for 10 years before they decide to go with a realtor next time and do it differently. But in the meantime, you have online brokerages, you have online mortgage companies. I mean, you don't even have to see a person to make a transaction. And that's ridiculous because this is one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make, and you're removing the human contact behind it. That's absurd.
And there's something you brought up a while ago as far as these out of the box ideas, and people are being upset about them, and you have to try them. I'm with you. There is a way that you can abide by your real estate commission's guidelines or whatever your governing force is, those guidelines, and still be ethically and moral, but it doesn't have to be an old school concept. It could be something new. It could be something edgy, and you can still follow those lines and create something like you have that creates the kind of exposure you brought in on that.
Yep. What do you feel like as far as your biggest lesson behind this? I mean, do you feel like you would go back and change anything, or do you feel like you're comfortable with the decision? I mean, in hindsight, looking back on it, what would change?
I would say if you're going to do something like this, you need to change your MLS pictures Friday night so they at least can run the weekend.
Get a weekend out of it. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So give the biddies the weekend so they can stew on it, and then they'll take them down Monday morning. But you at least get 3 good days out of it. So I love it. That would be my only change that I would do.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I think as far as, Ryan, you want to finish anything? Got any other questions as far as what we're looking for? Or?
No, I'll just say I love your mindset. I love your excitement and pushing forward. And just because you hit a roadblock, you jumped it and went a little further. And so, I really appreciate you tuning in and giving us this interview today.
Yeah. And I'll say, my biggest piece of advice is, keep being you. We tell people, new agents coming in all the time, asking us for advice, is just be yourself, be authentic. Of course, like Ryan said, know what lines to cross, what not sometimes, but you've got to take that risk sometimes. You're in this business to represent yourself, get exposure, as well as, at the end of the day, help your clients get their things sold. So
right.
I applaud you. I mean, you definitely thought outside the box. You went for it. You've got exactly what you're looking for. You've got the exposure for the listing, which as agents, that's all we can ask for. So right. Again, I applaud you. I know you've received all kinds of backlash on this, but again, can't go back and change anything now. So
definitely what's done is done. But I've already seen some people like posting some similar MLS pictures and copycats out there. And I think it's awesome. And I think the more that they do push that envelope, the more that they are going to have to change the guidelines. They're going to have to adapt to, where the age that we live in. And the world needs, and the younger generation hungers for authenticity. They are fed up with fake. And like it or not, you are what you are, and you need to be exposed, and you need to be raw, and you need to be real. And sometimes it hurts people's feelings. So,
well, Kristi, I want to say I really appreciate you joining us, and as a thank you for being our guest today, we're going to be sending you out a little gift package from Brown Truck Brewery, some Brown Truck swag, and we really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kristi. So we're going to finish up with that. Can you, before we finish, let them know where they can find you as well online? Anybody want to look you up?
Sure. I'm Potty Mouth Agent on Instagram. I have a Potty Mouth Agent page on Facebook as well. And then Kristin Gyldenege on Facebook, and Twitter is Potty Mouth Agent too.
Perfect. Perfect. And we'll plug that in the comments below as well, so it makes it easier access. But again, Kristin, thank you so much for joining us today. We really wanted to, again, say congratulations to that, because like I said, you took a risk. I think it worked for the better. So hopefully you get the house sold and you can move on and kind of use that experience for your next listing as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Beer and Real Estate.
If you like what you saw, hit the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe. Cheers.